Non-monogamous relationships. So, Dr. Witherspoon, welcome.
Hey,
Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
sure. My name is Dr. Ryan Witherspoon. I'm a psychologist in the Pasadena area. And in addition to working with a lot of clients who are in various types of non-monogamous, open, polyamorous relationships, I'm also a researcher in that field and do some writing. And it's a subject that I'm very excited to get to share more about with other clinicians.
Yeah, it's really an interesting subject. And I mean, having been, I'm a couples counselor, so I do a lot of work with that. You
Yeah,
know, it's not like you always hear this stuff, you know, put out there. But at the same time, when we get in the back room and or online, you get to hear, it's not all that unusual that they're swingers or polyamorous or whatever.
right.
So
Yeah.
what made you get into this?
Well, it's interesting. I got into it first as a researcher.
Okay.
Before I was in psychology, before I even went to grad school and was in the field, I was involved personally in non-monogamy. And when I went into psychology, I really didn't anticipate specializing in it. It was just a part of my life, and it wasn't something that was very unusual to me.
Mhm.
And then as I got into the field and started doing research and clinical work and whatnot, I started really seeing how much of a divide and understanding there was between a lot of clinicians or researchers and non-monogamous people, and also likewise how many non-monogamous people uh, had a certain either misunderstanding or even distrust of psychology or therapy, either because they had been pathologized or stigmatized in the past, or they were afraid that they would be. And so there was kind of this divide of understanding, and I felt like, well, maybe I can help bridge that gap in a way.
Right. And so what are you finding percentage wise? I mean, you must be, since you're niching in this area, what are you seeing with relationships in terms of, what the percentage would be of people that are doing what you call non-traditional, but maybe it's traditional?
Yeah, right. It's so we actually finally have some pretty good statistics, at least for North America. We have some representative studies for the United States and Canada,
Mhm.
and it's been found that about 4 to 5% of all adult romantic relationships are consensually non-monogamous in some way. So that could mean swingers, open relationships, polyamory. We don't know exactly what the proportions of those different types are. And
Mhm.
there's so many different ways it can be configured and work. It's hard to even draw lines around what the different terms might even mean, which is a whole other subject. But
Mhm.
so if we think about 5% of all adult relationships, and we also know that among single adults, 20% of them have previously been involved in non-monogamy in some way. 5% is actually a big number.
Mhm.
You know, the entire proportion of Native American, Alaska Natives in the United States is 1% of the population.
Wow.
You know, just as an example. So we're talking about 5 times that percentage. And so it's actually a very significant minority of relationships. And like you said, it starts to raise questions around, well, are these non-traditional? What counts as traditional anymore? And what does tradition mean in terms of the value people place on it and how that relates to their own cultural identities,
Mhm.
other aspects of their identity? And so there's a lot of richness in there. And what I've found in my work, in the research, is that even to say, um, oh, I work a lot with non-monogamous relationships, uh, that can mean so many different things, and there can be so much complexity and nuance. It's like saying, oh, I work a lot with gay clients. well, what does that mean exactly?
There's like 11 different, I don't know how that works, in terms of sexual gender identity and what you call yourself and what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think that, the way I think of it and the approach I take when I do presentations or trainings on non-monogamy is that I really encourage clinicians to think of it as a aspect of a person's cultural identity, and to take kind of a cultural competence approach to it, so that we wouldn't say, for instance, oh, I specialize in working with, Black clients.
Yeah.
Because, well, that's an aspect of their identity, but what are they coming in for?
Right, exactly.
And so with non-monogamy, most non-monogamous clients, couples come to therapy for the same kinds of reasons anybody else would. And some might come for reasons that are more specific to non-monogamy. But mostly what I have found is that they really just are looking for clinicians that are going to be open-minded, interested, curious, not pathologizing, and at least have a basic idea and framework of understanding for what some of the relevant issues or concerns or, whether it's assets or challenges. And so I think there's this perception that to work with non-monogamy, you have to be some kind of specialist in it. And that's really, I think, not true. I think most non-monogamous clients really just need a good therapist who at least has a basic understanding.
Yeah, and somebody who's curious and not judgmental.
Right.
I mean, I always say that I don't care if you're purple with pink polka dots, what's your goal? Let me help you show your goal. Whether, it is any kind of a different kind of a couple setting. I work with all different types of couples. It's interesting when it's like threesome and I've got two people there. And I'm like, okay, but where's the third person?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yes. And I'm like, if there's three people, why wouldn't there be three people there so we can have a discussion with everybody and negotiate?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of interesting systemic dynamics that can happen in non-monogamous relationships, just like in families, same stuff. And that's something I like to talk about in the presentations I give. And I really agree with you that curiosity, I think, needs to be really one of our biggest qualities that we bring. We have to really, I think, get to know what their truth is. And it's hard to do that if we are paying more attention to our biases than what they're saying. We have our biases. I have mine. We all have them, but that's okay. But we have to just be aware of them and know, okay, that's what that is, but what is this in front of me that I'm hearing?
Yeah, I've heard, and I say this often, Buddhist concept of I don't know mindset.
Yeah, I like that.
To me, at one point I did a podcast on curious intentions. So just living in curiosity, having the clients teach me about their specific population, because every family really does have their own. And, if that is non-monogamous, just help me to understand how it works for you and how I can negotiate and help you guys, get to where you want to be.
Right.
To me, that's the way you do it. And is that what you find?
Yeah, I do. And I think that there's, I think a balance to be struck with any population that is one that maybe either we aren't a part of ourselves or don't have a lot of our own knowledge about that we might work with. I think there's a balance to be struck between letting the clients teach you about their specific experience of that, but also not putting the client in a position of having to, in a more laborious way, pay us to teach us about things. Because that can sometimes, I think, for certain clients feel like a little bit of a burden, almost as if, we're asking them to teach us about these aspects of themselves that, it would be helpful if we had at least a general framework to think of. So like, yeah, just because any two non-monogamous people's experiences of non-monogamy are going to be very different,
Mhm.
I do think it helps for clinicians to have just a general understanding, to know what questions to ask, even to know, how to guide their curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, like as with my gay or bisexual couples, I might ask, what was your coming out story, or is there one, or that,
Exactly.
was that traumatic, was that great, all of that is still a piece of their story. So I want to know that so it can benefit them, and does it affect, the relationship.
That's a great example, because if, if we were a clinician that didn't know anything about gay or bisexuality, we wouldn't even, and they said, oh yeah, it was hard when I came out, we'd be like, came out? What do you mean? And imagine how microaggressive that would feel to them,
And yeah,
right?
biased for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I think in some ways our clients are always looking for us to judge them.
right.
And, and if they can see that acceptance, they don't see that you are, judging them, but that you're just curious,
Yeah,
then we get that buy-in so we can make the difference, help them to shift,
absolutely. I
which I
agree.
guess is what we're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of non-monogamous clients that I work with or see are coming to the table with some of their own internalized bias or shame or uncertainty or guilt, because like most of us, they grew up in a very mononormative culture here in America,
Mhm.
which implicitly taught them that that is the only right and good way to be in a relationship. And so even if, rationally they might think, no, I don't want to, I don't really agree with that, I want to live in this different way. Internally, of course, there could be conflict about that, and that can we can play such a powerful role, like you were saying, just by helping affirm and validate and reduce their shame, you know.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, what we get to all the time is these shame cycles, whether it's
Oh,
addiction or,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Um, so thank you so much for just starting this. So Dr. Witherspoon is going to be speaking at IE-CAMFT on January 22nd, 9 to 11. We're going to put the information down below wherever we happen to post. We'd love you to join us. Even if you're from another state, you can still join us as a guest for $20. And we would love you to do that so you can learn about this subject matter. I myself have about a stack this high of trainings with certificates, because I never want to stop learning. And that's really important for us as clinicians, to be open to learning and understanding as many aspects of any population, because we never know when we're going to run across it with our niche population.
Yeah. Yep.
So with that said, I will be introducing you that day, and I look forward to it. And if you could give me your information, so I can post that as well, I would love that. What is your website?
It's ryanwitherspoon.com. Just
Great.
like Reese Witherspoon, but we're not related. Everybody has to see that. ryanwitherspoon.com.
Got it. Okay, so look for that. And you said you do a bit of writing?
Yeah, a little bit. I do publish some research articles now and then. I'm currently co-authoring a book on working with kinky people and communities.
Mhm.
And I do a little bit of blogging here and then. I'm really not very good at blogging consistently. That's my
Yeah,
goal.
I get that. I'm an author as well, and I understand this subject matter is going to be interesting to a lot of people. So I look forward to this book that you're writing. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you on the 22nd from 9 to 11. And don't forget to go to IE-CAMFT.com and sign up for Ryan's event. Sorry, Dr. Witherspoon. And with that, have a great day.